Chris. Casey, thanks for taking the time. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I wish we were hanging out somewhere, together in downtown Detroit, but our Zoom will work for now.
Very soon. I think we'll all be back together very soon. It'll be nice. I'm looking forward to it. Casey, great. All right. So thank you for the time. If anyone doesn't already know, the very famous Casey Hurbis. Casey Hurbis is the CMO of Rocket Mortgage, and I'm really honored to have the opportunity to spend some time with you. A couple of questions here, but before we dive into your role at Rocket Mortgage, I'd like to step back just for a second and talk about some of your past that got you here, about your previous life as an auto marketer. What lessons did you learn in that automotive space that prepared you to build this Rocket Mortgage brand?
Yeah, and thanks for asking, Jason. I mean, you and I have worked together, for a number of years and known each other in the Metro Detroit area. Prior to joining Rocket Mortgage, which is 4 years ago this week, I spent 24 years in automotive marketing. When I graduated from Michigan State, School of Commerce Sci, an advertising major, I started working at Chrysler's agency. It was alphabet soup at the time. I went through buyouts, mergers, acquisitions. But I started at the retail level, tier two dealer groups. And I was with the agency, which ended up all being under BBDO for 17 years. And, in looking back on it, I'm just so thankful I started my career at the retail level, working on tier 2 and tier 3. I think it's really helped over time, understanding as, leading a big brand effort, which I did at Chrysler as well as now at a Quicken Loans Rocket Mortgage, is understanding what has to happen at the retail level. So I spent 17 years on the retail side at BBDO, and then I had a chance to join Chrysler. So literally, I went from being on the agency side to on the client side. And that's where you and I worked together. And for 7 years, I was fortunate enough to lead the Fiat North American brand, which, that brand at the time was coming back to the US after being out of the country for 28 years. So it had brand awareness lower than brands that had gone away many, many years ago. So that was an exciting yet daunting assignment at the time to launch a brand in 2011, which was obviously a very interesting time for our country. Spent 7 years doing that, which was an amazing experience, working on big brand and learning from one of the, I think, the best CMOs in the country with Olivier Francois. And then 4 years ago, was able to transition out of automotive to mortgages. And, thankfully, I'm able to work for an amazing company and culture here in downtown Detroit with Quicken Loans and Rocket Mortgage.
That's great. And I love that. My advertising background started very similar in terms of, tier 2, tier 3. And it definitely teaches you the value of every dollar and every investment because, while, you've had the opportunity to work on, campaigns that had millions of dollars, in terms of your campaign. But, when you're talking to a dealer, you're talking to end customer, and I mean, every single dollar matters so much. So yeah, I completely agree. That's a great way to start and a great way to build your career from there. Huge difference. So suddenly, your pivot point to go from automotive into selling sort of mortgages in an amazing company. I mean, sort of what excited you about that opportunity, about that challenge in your career?
Yeah, great question, Jason. And, it's, looking back on it, albeit it was 4 years ago, to step into a great company was building a big and continues to build a huge brand with Rocket Mortgage. And having zero mortgage and financial experience, albeit it sounds a lot more scarier now than it was maybe 4 years ago. But what's really interesting, Jason, is you could imagine, if you think about an automotive purchase as well as getting a mortgage, I mean, let's be honest. I don't think anybody wakes up in the morning and says, hey, honey, partner, or whatever it might be, today's the day we're going to get a hot water heater, a set of tires, a minivan, or a mortgage, right? And so the purchase funnel is almost exactly the same. I mean, fortunate, we spend a lot of money in brand and brand awareness, but we spend a lot of our time thinking about messaging and focusing on positive opinion and consideration, ultimately drive down that funnel. So there's so many similarities that I didn't realize until I got here. One is obviously the purchase funnel and the time. I mean, outside of a crazy refi or a lease market, you're only buying, refi or purchase a home every 3, 5, 7, 10 years. The process changes. It can be scary, it can be daunting. So there's a lot of similarities to the automotive side. And going back to the retail side, my previous life when I was working at the agency and as well as Fiat was thinking about how do we drive that mid to lower funnel activity and conversion to rooftops on the automotive side. And now here in downtown Detroit, if we were all together, there's 4,000 bankers, rooftops, if you will, right, that, I'm trying to drive high quality leads to on a daily basis. And so very similar, but it is different working on a brand that's very commodity based versus a piece of sheet metal, and a physical product that you can use. So a lot of similarities, a lot of, from a purchase cycle, life cycle standpoint, but also consumer or client mindset, going into at the top of the funnel and all the way through conversion. So that certainly has helped as I transition from automotive into the fintech space.
Yeah, makes perfect sense, and I didn't realize it, a few years ago because your brand is so ubiquitous and so strong. But you face a lot of competition in your space. There are a lot of ways to get mortgages, and so I think that is very similar. I mean, to some people, a car is a car. So it's up to us to build that brand and create that desire. Because it is a very different experience, for a certain car brand or mortgage brand, essentially.
Well, if you think about it, Jason, you're exactly right. I mean, again, drawing a parallel from automotive to mortgages, right? There are tons of brands and vehicles and, that fit a lifestyle. From a mortgage standpoint, there are 50,000 places you can obtain a mortgage in this country. Banks, non-bank lenders like Rocket Mortgage, credit unions, the broker business, which is like the tier 3, if you will, on the mortgage side of the business. There's 78 lenders in that space and tens of thousands of brokers. I mean, so again, it's commodity based 50,000 for us. I mean, we're blessed to be America's largest lender. That's about, it's also rooted in who we are as a company organization, focused on, every client, every time, no exceptions, no excuses, right, because we know that Americans have a choice. But we want to make sure that, we build ourselves to be the obvious choice, because at the end of the day, outside of having children, it's probably the most expensive, purchase you'll ever make in your life is, obtaining a home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes perfect sense. And then it obviously then, gives you a lot of ammunition to say, like, listen, the building of the brand is just as important, if not more important, than the driving of the leads at the end of the funnel.
Well, you're right. I mean, we're fortunate. Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
Oh no, I was just gonna say. So I guess a bit of a pivot here in terms of talking about building the brands. You've become sort of a fixture in the Super Bowl over the last X amount of years in your career. So obviously, even in your automotive days and now the mortgage days, I'd love to hear just a little bit about your process, how this whole process works for the actual Super Bowl, the seed of the idea, what you're trying to get across, and sort of what that process is like.
Yeah, I mean, we're fortunate on Rocket Mortgage in that, we're a large scale brand advertiser. One of the things as I transitioned from my automotive to mortgage was understanding, like, all right, how do we go to market from a brand standpoint? Are we flighting seasonalities? I mean, the mortgage business is almost very similar to the QSR space. Like, we're open 24/7. We're open 24/7. Americans have needs every single day, every minute. So we're a brand that we're a 24/7, 365 brand. And then obviously in those moments along the way, we've been fortunate since Rocket Mortgage launched in 2016 to sit on some of the largest stages, right? Even in the multi-screen, content world we live in, Super Bowl is still the largest, one-day audience. And we've been lucky to be in 4 Super Bowls since 2016. 3 of them since I joined in 2018 with Keegan-Michael Key, and last year 2020 with Jason Momoa, and this year with our campaign Be Certain with the one and only Tracy Morgan. And it is a daunting process, Jason. It starts back in May and June. Even though we're an in-house agency, I have 300 team members here, 100 in creative. They pitch, but we also utilize outside agencies to pitch us ideas. And we start with somewhere of 100, 150 ideas. And over the course of reviews and reworks and, talent searches and, testing and concepting along the way, we ultimately end with one idea. And, along the way, more often than not, it's going to engage a celebrity or talent or whatever it might be. And, we've been really, really lucky in that we engage the talent early. And it's really important to us that we understand how to develop a relationship with that talent, because we feel that building a Super Bowl campaign, we're not going to be a one and done Super Bowl advertiser, of which you just see us on February 7th and then we're gone for months. We believe in developing a Super Bowl campaign that is big and epic, but also is campaignable. So it's got shelf life for the next 3, 6 months, whatever it might be. You see that right now with the Tracy Morgan campaign. And it's important as we develop that celebrity relationship that it's not just, we need you for the sake of being you and as a celebrity, whoever he or she may be, but you are helping us deliver the brand message. You've seen that with Keegan and Jason and certainly Tracy, where the creative idea was built, and then the celebrity, if you will, or talent, helped deliver that all the way through. It wasn't just having a celebrity for the sake of having a celebrity. So that's been a little bit of our, secret sauce. And it's 7, 8 months. It's the most painful 60 seconds of a marketer's life, because as soon as that, as soon as they go to the next spot or break, and you just know that, all of your work is, going into this, this type of rating mode. It's exciting, but daunting.
Yeah, I can only imagine it. And honestly, I mean, sort of just the idea of striking that balance between, tone and, delivery and trying to get your brand message across, I think is critical, and honestly a fine line, because, the tone of, the game, of the country, of whatever, can change and pivot, within a few minutes. So I can only imagine there's a lot of anxiety that sort of leads up into that whole process.
Well, especially this year too, Jason. One is you had a lot of brands that were asking themselves, maybe they were tried and true Super Bowl advertisers. Is this the year we maintain and we continue? Or brands that maybe didn't feel like the tone and what continues to, we're endearing here in our country, it's the right time. We had to make that decision a little bit earlier. And we said, America wants to sit back and relax and maybe, forget, if you will, everything that's going on in our country for 3 hours. Obviously, that helps lend itself to the tone. We're a big believer in entertaining, engaging, and delivering a smile. But also, it gave us the confidence, home for us, especially, starting with the pandemic, home means more to Americans more than ever. So that gave us yet another sense of, a sense of confidence that it is the right time for us to be in the Super Bowl. And I really believe the creative idea delivered on that.
Yeah, I love it, and I agree, and I love it when you sort of have that North Star of sort of saying like home is sort of our our bedrock, and then suddenly you've got something to build from. So I love that approach. Just you mentioned a little bit about the process of building the relationships with the talent, and you've had the opportunity and the privilege of working with some of the largest stars in the world. Talk a little bit about sort of that process and that vetting and that relationship, and then sort of how you start to then, narrow in on someone who says, I'm perfect for this brand, and this person is perfect for us. Help me understand a little bit of what you go through in that case.
And that's a great question. I'll give you a really interesting story. And last year is we started to look at this idea, what ended up being the Jason Momoa Get Comfortable. And when I first saw the concept, I didn't really know who Jason Momoa was. I just hadn't seen Aquaman. I wasn't a Games of Thrones star, but I saw everybody else's reaction to the room, my team, and I'm like, all right, well, evidently he is or about to be a big star. Mm-hmm. Long story short, he had never done a commercial before. And we took the idea to him and he loved it. And then as we got really close to final negotiations, feedback came to us was like, Jason and his camp team, whatever it might be, they don't know if they want Jason's first commercial to be with a mortgage brand for whatever that may be, should it be beer or auto, whatever it might. And so I asked for 12 hours, And in 12 hours, I got on the phone with Jason, and he's married to Lisa Bonet, and his team. And we didn't talk at all about Rocket Mortgage, the brand. We talked about our company. I talked about our chairman, Dan Gilbert. I talked about what we do here in Detroit. Jason has a lot of shared passions, children's education, water, clean water, plastic, and removing plastic, and veteran homelessness, of which we're engaged with. And all we did was we talked about who we are as a company and our philosophy. And we didn't talk about the mortgage brand. By the end of that call, and a lot of times when I talk about who we are as a company, and particularly what we do here in Detroit, Cleveland, Phoenix, usually the answer I get is like, I had no idea. And at the end of that call, Jason and Lisa are like, we had no idea. Wow, we want to be part of that. And so that started that relationship. He came here this past summer on his own, right as COVID started to loosen up a little bit, over the summer. And he came here on his own with one person, myself, my creative director, and a cop. And we walked around the city for a day and a half, just filming and talking about our story about how we're trying to help bridge the digital divide here in Detroit. 30% of Detroit residents don't have internet access. And we have an initiative here within the organization to help bridge that. And Jason literally through this relationship said, I want to come to Detroit and help you tell that story on my own. And that's an example of, yeah, there's going to be a financial transaction, that's inevitable, but it's about building that relationship and, where you can do that shared storytelling and borrow equity from each other. I mean, that's what we look for in any type of partnership, whether it be a media company, a publisher, and certainly a celebrity.
Love it. And yeah, so that's a great example of sort of saying, you can choose from many, lists of A-list, talent. But ultimately, then you start to find sort of the shared values, and then ultimately, then it becomes almost a no-brainer in this example of where, of course, let's work together, and in fact, let's do more work together, and here's what else we can do. And honestly, and one of the things that sort of you just touched upon as well as sort of just the ethos of sort of what you do at Rocket Mortgage, and sort of the do good while you do well. And I think the things that you guys do within the community and everything is inspiring, and something that makes sense that you're going to align with talent that would sort of have that same ethos as well.
Yeah, and Jason, you and I are here in Detroit, and for everyone watching, I invite everybody to come to Detroit when they're feeling comfortable. Of course, the Renaissance continues here in this great American city. And when I moved over to the company 4 years ago, I knew all of the things that Dan Gilbert, our chairman and founder, and the company were doing, because I read about them. And then I got here, and it's just the amount of infrastructure and the building that we're doing here in downtown Detroit has come a long, long ways over the last 10 years. And Dan Gilbert this past year, said we're just getting started, but it's above and beyond that. You talked about, doing good by doing well. That's one of our operating philosophies, also for more than profit. And so, one of the things I really enjoy about working for this organization is I walk out of the building every day when I'm here, and I see like the fruits of the little, I do a little bit of work here, and I see some of the fruits of the labor, whether it's going vertical in downtown Detroit, the work we do with schools, the community, our engagement with veteran homelessness and Built for Zero and community solutions. There's 40,000 veterans that still sleep on the ground that they came home and kissed one day. That has to end. We're helping eradicate that around the country. And then I mentioned the digital divide here in Detroit. We've got a multi-year mission of helping end that digital divide. If you think about it today, in today's day and time, 30% of our residents in Detroit don't have internet access. So a school child that doesn't have access for school, an adult that's looking for a job, or anyone from 8 to 80 and above, that has to depend on maybe for telemedicine. I mean, it's 30% too much. And it's awesome. It just feels so good to work in an organization that we know we're trying to impact the outcome every single day. And, that really drives a lot of passion for our team members. And, it feels really good to know that we're helping, contribute to those initiatives.
Yeah, it's extremely commendable. So thank you, and keep up all the good work there. I'd love to pivot a little bit into sort of influencer marketing, and clearly, I would argue that your A-list celebrity that you've already worked with, in these large campaigns. I mean, those are influencers in a lot of ways. I mean, in terms of your actual, venturing into the influencer space, in terms of, leveraging that authentic talent, not everyone can relate to a Jason Momoa, but ultimately, taking the more pedestrian voices and creative lenses and leveraging that voice to your marketing. How has that process been for you, and what are some of the things that you've liked, and some things that you'd like to see coming forward?
Yeah, great question, Jason. You're right. I mean, you've got the A-list celebrities that, a lot of them have those huge followings, and that's awesome because you're able to extend, amplify, maybe reach a new audience utilizing that talent. But you also think about the role that using influencers as like a secondary, even tertiary delivery mechanism, the role they play with the brand campaign. You saw it this past year with our Super Bowl spot in which, we had Tracy Morgan and we had Dave Bautista. And I challenged the creative team of like, let's look at and bringing on we'll call it a TikTok, whatever it might be, an influencer. And, we got to meet Liza Koshy, and Liza comes, a Vine star, YouTube, certainly IG. And wow, the audience that she has, it helped us unlock such a different audience. I mean, it's funny. I talk to my kids are 15 and 10, and they don't necessarily talk about the Tracy Morgan commercial. They talk about the Liza Koshy commercial. So it's funny. I'll give you a great story. Is we were trying to shoot a TikTok video as part of our teaser campaign, and Tracy didn't know what TikTok was. He's like, I don't need TikTok. And we went to go shoot this video with Liza for her channels with Tracy, and he didn't want to do it. And I had to pull Tracy aside. I'm like, you don't understand, Tracy. This is all about, this is for the campaign, but this is for Liza and her audience. And like literally we shot it in about 35 seconds, and it took and now Tracy's like digging TikTok and he wants to get more involved. Like, you have to understand, Tracy, the audience, and we want to be able to share what we're doing with this audience, and that we'll call it, organic, and so we found that that's worked for Super Bowl. And for a lot of our events, I mean, I challenge our social media team and our agency partners and media partners like yourself, like help us find that with the influencers that can help us tell that story in their audiences, in the right voice for their audience. So quite honestly, for me, we utilize TikTok quite a bit for our Super Bowl squares. And I said, let's go with TikTok. I'll invest, let's go. And as I started to see the creative ideas, and here's what, Jason Gole, is going to do, of course, it was way over my head, or I didn't get it, but that was okay. I'm not meant to get it. So let's go. You don't need a CMO that's going to art direct and creative direct this idea, because then it's going to look like an idea that, a middle-aged marketer thinks is right for the audience. Like, I have to put trust in the media partners and the talent's hands. They're not there to mess up a brand. Right? They're in business for a reason. And so I've been very, very happy with how we've continuously, I'll call it test. I'm all about test. One of our things here is if you're going to fail fast, learn and move on. And so as we continue to test what worked, what didn't work, what can we do better? How can we grow? And that's what I really empower my team to bring forth those ideas. And, the utilization of, influencers in the influencer space is so important as it connects to the overall, arching strategy or creative theme.
Yeah, I love that. And I appreciate what you're saying. I think as a CMO, someone in your role, you have to have a lot of courage to say, I don't quite get this, but it makes sense because of X, Y, and Z. And now I'm going to give my brand to this person and this voice, and I'm going to trust my team and go with it.
You're right, Jason. I would say as a marketer, you have to be so careful. And we're an in-house agency for the most part. My biggest fear as the CMO of a brand is that I end up seeing, buying, or implementing ideas that I just think are right. I mean, there's a lot of brands in this country where you watch their commercials and you're like, you know what? That got an applause at the sales meeting or inside the boardroom, but it's Charlie Brown's teacher to the consumer who the intended audience is. It doesn't deliver, on a brand promise or what have you, but it certainly plays well inside of a boardroom. And I think a lot of times with the use, again, I see the ideas, I'm like, I don't get it, but I'm not the audience.
Right.
We'll let the audience decide if we connected right.
Yeah, no, it's so smart, and I'm sure there's a lot of agency leads and publishers are hearing this and definitely want to come work for you because as a CMO to have that sort of that humility and and the ability to say, you know what, I don't always have the great ideas, but I'm going to trust all of you. You guys are smart, and I want you to have that authority and autonomy to help me make this decision. That's amazing. So good for you. In terms of, oh, I'm sorry, one more question before we move on. How much time are you spending on TikTok after sort of this process?
It's funny. When we went through the process of thinking about influencers for the Super Bowl spot, Jason, like I had a list of like 10 or 15 of them. I did not know one of them. I'd heard maybe of David Dobrik and a couple others.
Right.
And so literally I would go home each night and over dinner with my kids, again, 15 and 10. I didn't tell them what I was working on. Like I knew I was working on Super Bowl, but all I did was I would say their names and then I would just wait for that, like, their facial or like, oh, he's like, and all of a sudden I learned more about them. Like, oh, she used to date this guy and they're in a fight, like, and so literally that was my focus group was my 15 and 10-year-olds. So, but for me now, I mean, I'm more of a mid adopter. I mean, I love being on social and I'm a mid adopter. So now I'm in like, all right, discovering Clubhouse more, yeah, I'm spending time on TikTok. My team's always showing me things, my kids show me things. And so I'm more of the mid adopter stage, but certainly spending more time with those platforms.
Yeah, same. I think it takes a minute to say, you know what, because at first I had the mentality of, you know what, I'm already invested in platforms X, Y, and Z, and I don't have any more time for another one. And then suddenly, I started to consume some of the TikTok, and I was like, holy cow, there's something here. Suddenly I'm like, I fell down the rabbit hole, and I spent an hour, and suddenly, then I understood like the appeal and
There's
there's
some good entertainment there too. There's a lot of times, my son or I are like, hey, Cash or Dad, did you see this? I'm like, yeah, I already saw it. Or inevitably he's already seen probably something I saw 2 days earlier.
Yeah. So and it's smart, and honestly, in our children mine are roughly the same age as yours, and they are the consumers or the auto buyers, the mortgage buyers of tomorrow. And they influence a ton of purchases within our house right now. So it's something that it's important for them. It's important for us to understand these platforms because that is what they're spending their time on.
I mean, I remember back in my Fiat days, we were doing some pretty big like TV spots, working with a lot of celebs. But I would go to a middle school or high school, and at the time we were an early brand to work with Dude Perfect on YouTube. And I could like, hey, Pitbull and Shaggy and blah, blah, blah. Like, it was like, and they're like, who, Mr. Hurbis? But the second I pressed play on a Dude Perfect video, like Mr. Hurbis was the man. I was like, like you knew, it was like, it was right at the heart of that audience.
Yeah, no, you've been on that cutting edge for a long time. Yeah. So just sticking on this topic for a second, I guess, in terms of your mentality, and clearly your product is an evergreen product in a lot of ways. You're not essentially launching, but you are building the brand, and you are harvesting demand at the bottom of the funnel. In terms of influencer marketing specifically, is your mindset of more of building brand with influencers, or is it more of a mid-funnel thing, or could influencers exist at that lower part of that funnel and helping people, encouraging them to actually submit that lead and move forward?
Yeah, and certainly I want to come off as brand agnostic, but or platform agnostic. But I'll give you a couple examples. I remember 3 years ago, I was sitting in Venice Beach meeting with a platform, and we started talking about like, hey, could we drive leads? Can we literally drive leads today utilizing Snapchat? And I asked him, I'm like, how the hell? And like, let's go test it. Lo and behold, we started utilizing the Snapchat platform 3 years ago to drive good quality leads. We're actually doing that right now with TikTok. We work with Core Digital, Lower My Bills, the public brand. They're part of our family of companies. And we're utilizing TikTok right now, using team members in a TikTok format to talk about, hey, today you could save, or have you thought about, or whatever it might be. And it's driving high quality leads. So it's not just an ethosphere upper funnel play. we're working continuously testing and, finding some success with using some, social media platforms, again, right content and to drive that middle to lower funnel activity. So a lot of it's testing, and as it tests and it goes well, we'll continue to grow it.
Excellent. And kudos to you too, for not putting certain things in a certain box and say, you know what, that's great. We'll put that on the shelf for when we're going to launch something or whatever. So kudos to you. That's great. So just sort of pivoting now a little bit in terms of, I guess, I see there's a lot of people, sort of in the room and tuning in. I guess I would love to hear maybe some of your advice, to an aspiring marketer or the next Casey Hurbis that's listening right now. What's some advice that you would give to your younger self?
Yeah, you get asked that question a lot. That's when you're getting old, is when they ask you, you're like, hey, what will you ask the 23-year-old Casey? I'm like, damn, that was a freaking long time ago. One is the one thing I always talk about is I didn't realize the power of networking till I was probably a little later in my career, called 5-10 years in. Granted, when I started my career, there was no LinkedIn, Facebook, what have you. So the ability to, network, whether it's LinkedIn, Detroit AdCraft, whatever it might be, being part of those professional clubs. This is a small business. I mean, you and I know this better than anyone, Jason. And in Detroit, there's about a 1.2 degrees of separation. I don't care, what you do in this business, publisher, agency, or client side. But as I've grown over the years, if you will, and more miles that are put on the tires, what I've learned, and Dan Gilbert talks about this, is a great Dan Gilbert quote, is, I've never learned anything by talking. And, so that's where I'm a talker, make no mistake, but it's sitting back and listening, right? Listening to your team, listening to ideas, listening, and when we have interns here, we'll have 1,100 interns at our company. We'll have 50 inside of marketing. And I spend a lot of time with them just listening and listening to ideas and thoughts that they might have, and they share with us. So that's a big part as I've continued to grow in my career, is to understand, is listen, developed. In this question was asked to me yesterday, actually, in a book club that we do with our team, was like, hey, how do you define yourself as a leader? And I'm one that, I really, I've tried hard, and this is how I grew up, was to build trust-based relationships with your people, your team, and, work to, and I have the philosophy that I work for my team, and how do I provide my team the right counsel, feedback, support, knock down the wall if needed, and set him or her up for success, because the better that they can do, that just, rises all boats. So thank you for asking the old man question, Jason. I got plenty of advice if you need more.
Listen, I feel your pain a little bit. I think it was just a few years ago. It was like, I was part of the young brigade of.
We're no longer part of the Young Professionals Club. We're in the OPC, not the YPC.
Exactly. It was trying to sell digital media a long time ago, and people are like, okay, cool, and now suddenly, all that's changed. But you were, listen, you were early in on, making the networking thing, and I follow you on a variety of the social media platforms, and so the in-person networking and sort of having that relationship, because this is a relationship business. But then you were one of the first people that I saw, and to do it at a really high level, to sort of create some social content in a professional way, that was one that always gave people an insight into a little bit of a window into your life and what you're into, what you're up to, in a way that was compelling. So kudos to you for seeing that early on. I mean, you were one of the first people I saw and knew that had the blue check on Twitter. I'm still trying to get there. So kudos to you.
I got a guy, Jason, if you need to. We'll talk after.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. So cool. Before we open this up to a couple of questions, I guess, I would love to just hear just one thing, whether it's a personal or professional thing. And what's one thing that you're looking forward to this year? It'd be great to hear.
Yeah, I mean, probably like everyone else here is understanding what our new normal looks like. I'm a butts and seats guy. I've never had to work out of my house my entire life, and there have been blessings, right? I'm not in the car 2.5 hours a day. I've had more dinners with my family in the past year than I have the last 10 years. there are blessings there, but man, I miss my people. I miss the office. I miss the culture. You know, even in the multi-device world that we live in, the power of face-to-face, one-to-one communication. I don't care how much technology takes over. That's an art form that will never go away. So what I'm looking forward to is, you know, what that new normal looks like, getting back to the office in a safe, healthy manner, seeing my team, getting in the room that is probably, and I don't know when that is. And it's just a matter of if. It's a matter of when, not if, and that's what I'm quite honestly looking forward to. And it's new. I probably won't be in the office 5 days a week. And a year and a half ago, I would have said NFW. No way, that's not me. But as I sit here 18 months from now, I've learned a lot about myself, and why not? I could probably be just as effective being in the office 2, 3, 4 days a week versus 5, and that probably helps from a mental, physical, and overall spiritual standpoint.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I completely agree, and I that's probably the one thing that I miss the most as well. Just sort of seeing people across the table, sitting in a room, hashing out ideas, being able to read the room in terms of body language, and understanding if if people like your idea or not. So I echo the same sentiment. So it will happen, right? This is the year we're doing it. All right, cool. So there are a couple questions in the chat here. So let me see here. This is a good one. So how important is the data behind influencer marketing? Do the metrics drive the messaging? Good question.
Yeah, very good question. Actually, it was funny. I was on a Michigan State CMO Council. I'm part of the alumni club, and we had a bunch of CMO Spartan grads last night, and we're talking about data. I mean, like real talk. I mean, every CMO, like we talk about what's changed not only over the course of the year, over the last few years. I mean, the amount of time I spend with data, I mean, multiplies every single day. The data is there. And certainly, we're a fintech company. We have a lot of data. How do you best utilize it? But I want to be careful that, we make sure that we let the machines do what machines do best. It's called art and science. So, let the machines do what the machines do best. How do we identify the client? The audiences, whatever it might be, and maybe what the right messaging, personalization might be. But let's make sure we are utilizing our creative to drive to that. So the metrics are so important. They're going to drive a lot of maybe decision making, but we got to make sure that we don't lose sight of what the art is that helps deliver that. It's just about being smarter. I mean, it's not a shotgun approach anymore. It's spray and pray, the old media plans. It's almost, now it's like getting down to the sniper level. I'm gonna sound like every other CMO in the world, right message, right place, right time. And we're going that way, but let's not lose sight of the art of our business.
Love it. Love it. And Casey, you've literally checked every box in terms of all the things that I would ever want to work for in terms of working for someone. So thank you for all of that. Chris, I see you're in the room. Is the music coming up?
Yeah, I'm like that Oscars walk-off music, unfortunately. Right. But before you go, Casey, 2 things for you. So first, how